She had always loved the sea. There was something about its rhythm, the steady pulse of waves lapping at the shore, that made everything feel temporary. The way the water would kiss the sand, then pull away, as if it couldn't decide whether to stay or leave. Lila stood at the edge of the beach, her bare toes sinking into the cool, wet sand. The air was thick with the scent of salt and seaweed, and the breeze soft but constant, tangled in her hair like gentle fingers. It had been years since she had come to this place, a forgotten cove where the world seemed smaller, where time felt slower, and where the tides had once kept her secrets. She took a breath deep and full, tasting the salt on her tongue as the memories washed over her like the waves. They had met here many summers ago, him, the one who had promised forever in words that slipped away as easily as sand through fingers. Now standing in that same place, Lila felt the weight of his absence like a stone lodged deep in her chest. He was gone, and yet not gone. His absence was a presence all its own, haunting the spaces between her thoughts, filling her mind with quiet questions she no longer asked aloud. She walked along the shoreline, the soft whisper of the sea calling her forward. The sun low in the sky painted the horizon with streaks of orange and pink, but even the beauty of it felt hollow. Every step she took echoed with the sound of abandonment, the soft slap of waves against her feet, mirroring the gentle way he had left, the way he had slowly drifted away from her life, like a boat untethered from its moorings, pulling farther and farther into the distance, until all that was left was a speck on the horizon. And then not even that. She had tried to hold on. She had clung to the idea of him, the idea of what they had once been, but in the end, it was like trying to grasp water. The harder she held, the more it slipped through her fingers. And now all that remained was the vast emptiness he had left behind. The gulls cried above her, their calls sharp and lonely, cutting through the stillness of the evening. Lila paused, looking out at the sea. The waves rolled in steady and unrelenting, crashing against the rocks with a force that seemed almost violent, then retreating back into the depths, taking pieces of the shore with them. She knelt down, her fingers brushing against the wet sand, feeling its coolness seep into her skin. There was something comforting in the texture of it, the way it molded around her hand, soft and pliable, yielding to her touch. She closed her eyes, listening to the sound of the waves, letting it pull her deeper into herself. Abandonment. It was a word that had always tasted bitter to her, like the metallic tang of blood after biting her lip. She had been abandoned once before, long before him. As a child, her father had walked out one morning and never returned. She remembered sitting by the window, waiting, watching for the familiar silhouette to appear on the horizon. But it never did. The years that followed had been marked by silence, her mother's silence, her own. The kind of silence that stretched between people like an ocean, wide and impassable. It had shaped her, that silence. It had taught her to keep her own heart quiet, to not ask too much of anyone, to not need too much. And yet, despite it all, she had needed him. She had needed him in ways she didn't fully understand. He had been her anchor, her steady ground. But now, standing alone on this shore, she realized that he had never really been hers to keep. The sea continued to whisper at her feet, and in its rhythm she began to hear something new. The waves came and went, just as they always had, but now they seemed to carry with them a different message, not of loss, but of something else, something deeper. She listened, her breath slowing, her body relaxing into the steady pulse of the tide. You are not abandoned. The thought drifted into her mind like a whisper, soft and gentle, carried on the breeze. She frowned, her fingers curling into the sand as the words echoed in her thoughts. You are not abandoned. You have only abandoned yourself. Her heart clenched at the words, at the truth of them. She had been so focused on the people who had left her, so consumed by the absence of others, that she had failed to see what she had done to herself. She had pulled away, retreated into herself, closed off the parts of her heart that had once been open, vulnerable. Return to yourself. The waves whispered the words again, and Lila felt something shift within her, a soft loosening of the knot that had formed in her chest. She had been waiting for someone to come back, waiting for someone to fill the emptiness she felt inside. But no one could do that for her. No one could make her whole again. Only she could do that. She took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill her lungs, and for the first time in a long time, she felt the weight begin to lift. She wasn't abandoned. She had never been abandoned. She had simply forgotten how to stay with herself. The sea was still there, the waves still coming and going, but now they felt different. They were no longer a reminder of what she had lost, but a reminder of something deeper, something eternal. The tide would always return, just as she could always return to herself. Anchor yourself in your own heart, the waves whispered, and Lila felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. It was so simple, and yet so profound. She had been looking outward, searching for someone to hold her steady, when all along the anchor she sought was within her. The air around her seemed to soften, the tension in her body melting away as the realization took hold. She stood up slowly, her legs unsteady at first but growing stronger with each passing moment. The sea stretched out before her, vast and endless, but now it no longer felt like a void. It felt like a reflection of her own inner landscape, deep, mysterious, full of life. Lila closed her eyes, letting the sounds of the ocean wash over her, feeling the cool breeze on her skin, the salt lingering on her lips. She took another deep breath, this one slower, fuller, and with it, she released the last of the tension that had been holding her back. She was not alone. She had never been alone. The people who had left her, the love that had drifted away, it was all part of the same cycle. Just as the tide ebbs and flows, so too did the relationships in her life. But they didn't define her. She was not defined by who stayed or who left. She was defined by the love she carried within her own heart. You are whole, the waves whispered, and Lila smiled, a soft knowing smile that came from deep within her. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the last rays of light across the water, she stood taller, her feet grounded in the sand, her heart anchored in herself. The wind caressed her skin, gentle and kind, and in that moment, she felt the world open up around her. She was no longer waiting. She was no longer searching. She was home. And with that, Lila turned away from the shore, her heart light, her steps steady, knowing that wherever she went from here, she would never abandon herself again.